We need this area clear right now.
The little flower girl was the only person who smiled at the old janitor. She skipped across the polished marble floor, stopped beside the elderly man pushing a worn cleaning cart, and looked up at him with innocent curiosity. "Good morning," she said. The old man smiled warmly. "Good morning, princess." Before either of them could say another word, an event coordinator hurried over. "Sam," she snapped, "the guests are arriving. Please move your cart and stay out of sight." The old man nodded without arguing. "I'm almost done." She sighed impatiently. "This is the biggest wedding this hotel has ever hosted. We can't have staff standing where the guests will see them." Sam quietly pushed his cart toward the service hallway. He had heard words like those countless times during the 28 years he had worked at the Grand Ashford Palace Hotel. Being invisible had become part of his job. But before the night was over, the bride herself would run through a ballroom filled with billionaires, celebrities, and politicians, throw her arms around that same quiet janitor, and call him the one word no one expected: Dad. The entire room would fall silent. Before we reveal why the bride's words changed everything, subscribe to Hidden Motives if you love emotional fictional stories filled with unforgettable twists, hidden truths, and powerful life lessons. Every week, we bring you cinematic stories that remind us not to judge people by appearances. The Grand Ashford Palace Hotel glittered beneath the afternoon sun like a palace built for royalty. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Photographers crowded the red carpet. Inside, employees rushed through the enormous ballroom, making final adjustments to thousands of white orchids, crystal chandeliers, and elegant gold decorations. Everything had to be flawless. Among the dozens of hotel employees moving quietly through the building was 70-year-old Samuel Brooks. Everyone called him Sam. Every morning before sunrise, he polished marble floors, repaired broken fixtures, watered plants, and greeted every employee with the same gentle smile. Many guests barely noticed him. Others looked straight through him. But the people who worked beside him knew a different Sam. The kitchen staff admired his kindness. The security guards trusted his advice. Young employees often sought him out whenever life became difficult. No matter what happened, Sam always found the right words. Every evening after work, he returned to a modest little house on the edge of the city. The walls were covered with photographs. A little girl learning to ride a bicycle. Her first day at school. Her graduation. Her college acceptance letter. Every picture showed the same bright smile. Her name was Sophia Bennett. Today, she was getting married. Yet there wasn't a single photograph of Sam standing beside her. Not because he wasn't there, but because he had always preferred standing behind the camera, making sure she had every memory she deserved. Upstairs in the bridal suite, Sophia stood before a large mirror while bridesmaids adjusted her elegant white lace gown. She smiled politely, but her eyes kept drifting toward the window. "Are you nervous?" one bridesmaid asked. Sophia smiled. "A little, but mostly, I'm waiting for someone." Far below, through the window overlooking the hotel entrance, she spotted a familiar gray uniform. Sam was quietly wiping fingerprints from the glass doors. Relief spread across her face. "He came," she whispered. Meanwhile, a sleek black limousine stopped outside the hotel. Alexander Kingston stepped out. At only 34 years old, he had built one of the country's fastest-growing technology companies and was already worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Despite his success, Alexander treated everyone with respect. As he entered the lobby, he noticed Sam struggling to move a heavy cleaning cart over a thick carpet. Without hesitation, Alexander walked over. "Need a hand?" Sam smiled. "I've got it." Alexander laughed. "Two people are faster than one." Together they lifted the cart over the carpet. "There you go," Alexander said. "Congratulations on your wedding." "Thank you." Alexander shook Sam's hand before heading toward the ballroom. Nearby, two wealthy investors watched the exchange. "He's talking to the janitor?" one muttered. The other shrugged. "That's probably why people like him." Sam quietly returned to work. Inside his uniform pocket rested a small velvet jewelry box. He gently touched it before continuing down the hallway. Years earlier, Sophia had admired a simple silver heart pendant displayed in a tiny jewelry store. Back then, Sam couldn't afford it. He spent months saving a few dollars from every paycheck until he finally bought it. But before he found the right moment to give it to her, life changed. The pendant had remained safely tucked away ever since. Today, he hoped he finally could. As guests continued arriving, the event coordinator spotted him again. Sam. He looked up. The ballroom is for invited guests only. I understand. I'll stay in the service hallway. She nodded before rushing away. A young waiter hurried over moments later. Mr. Sam. Yes. The bride asked whether you'd arrived. Sam blinked. She asked for me? Yes. She specifically asked if you were here. The event coordinator overheard the conversation. The bride knows him? The waiter shrugged. I guess so. Sam simply smiled. I'll see her when she's free. He never wanted attention. Never expected recognition. Watching Sophia begin her new life was more than enough. Upstairs, the music changed. Guests slowly found their seats. The ballroom doors opened. Sophia took a deep breath. Her eyes searched the crowd one last time. Not for celebrities. Not for politicians. Not even for Alexander. She looked toward the service hallway. She smiled. Then she began walking down the aisle. Every guest rose to their feet. The orchestra filled the ballroom with a beautiful melody as Sophia walked slowly toward the altar. White orchids framed the aisle, crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and hundreds of cameras captured every step. Alexander couldn't take his eyes off her. To everyone watching, she looked like the picture of confidence. Only she knew her heart was searching for one familiar face. As she reached the altar, she glanced toward the back of the ballroom. Hidden behind the service doors, Sam stood quietly, smiling. That was enough. The ceremony unfolded perfectly. The vows were heartfelt. The rings were exchanged. When the officiant announced them husband and wife, the ballroom erupted into applause. For a moment, it seemed like the perfect ending. In reality, it was only the beginning. An hour later, the reception was in full swing. Guests laughed over dinner while the orchestra played softly in the background. Business leaders discussed investments. Celebrities posed for photographs. The enormous wedding cake stood untouched beneath a cascade of white flowers. The master of ceremonies welcomed everyone before inviting a few family members to share short speeches. Sophia's mother, Margaret Bennett, spoke first. She thanked the guests, praised the couple, and wished them a lifetime of happiness. The audience applauded warmly. An old family friend shared a funny childhood story that filled the ballroom with laughter. Then the master of ceremonies smiled. Before the first dance, is there anyone else who would like to say a few words? Sophia slowly stood. I would. The room became quiet. She accepted the microphone and looked around the ballroom. There is someone here without whom I would never be standing in this dress today. Many guests smiled, expecting her to mention her late father. Instead, she turned toward the entrance. Dad. Nothing happened. Guests exchanged confused glances. Sophia smiled through tears. Dad, please come here. Standing just beyond the service doors, Sam froze. The young waiter gently touched his arm. She's calling you. Sam shook his head. No. There must be some mistake. Again, Sophia called. Dad, please. This time, everyone turned toward the hallway. There stood the elderly janitor in his gray hotel uniform, holding his cap in one hand. The event coordinator whispered, Why is she calling him? Slowly, almost reluctantly, Sam began walking forward. Guests stepped aside, creating a path through the ballroom. Whispers spread from table to table. That's the janitor. Does she know him? What's going on? Sam kept his eyes lowered. I don't belong up there, he whispered. Sophia walked down from the stage. You've always belonged. Without hesitation, she wrapped her arms around him. Tightly. The ballroom fell completely silent. Then she whispered the word that no one expected. Dad. A collective gasp swept through the room. Even the photographers forgot to press their cameras. Alexander watched quietly. For the first time, he understood why Sophia had spent the entire day looking toward the service hallway. She wasn't waiting for a guest. She was waiting for the man who had quietly given her everything. Sophia gently took Sam's hand and led him onto the stage. She faced the audience. I know many of you are surprised. She smiled at Sam. So was I, when I finally understood what he had sacrificed for me. The room listened intently. When I was 4 years old, my father passed away. My mother was overwhelmed with grief. Our family struggled in ways very few people ever knew. She paused. One person refused to let us face it alone. She looked at Sam. He worked 2 jobs. He walked me to school before starting work. He stayed awake helping me with homework after 12-hour shifts. He never complained. He simply smiled and kept going. Sam lowered his head. He had never wanted those sacrifices to become a story. Sophia continued. When I dreamed of becoming an architect, he sold the only thing he had of real value. Guest leaned forward. It was my grandmother's watch. He told me he'd misplaced it. I believed him. Years later, I discovered he'd sold it to pay my university fees. Many guests covered their mouths. I confronted him. Do you know what he said? Sophia smiled through tears. He said, a watch tells time. Watching you build your future was worth far more. Not a single person in the ballroom spoke. My friends believed my success came from privilege. My classmates admired my family's reputation. But the foundation of my life, she squeezed Sam's hand, was built by a man who expected nothing in return. Alexander walked toward them. He looked at Sam with deep respect. Can I ask you something? Sam nodded gently. Of course. Why did you never tell me you were Sophia's father? Sam smiled. Because I wanted you to love her for who she is. Not because of me. Alexander nodded slowly. And today, I'm honored to call you family. He stepped forward and embraced Sam. The applause began softly. Then it grew louder. Soon every guest was on their feet. The standing ovation seemed endless. People who had walked past Sam all morning were now applauding the quiet man they had never truly seen. Sam accepted the microphone. I've spent my whole life avoiding attention. The audience laughed softly. So this feels a little strange. He smiled. I never wanted Sophia to become successful so people would admire me. I wanted her to become successful so she'd never doubt herself. He looked at his daughter. I couldn't give you a fortune. I couldn't give you a famous name. But I hoped I could give you something better. The confidence to keep going. Even when life becomes difficult. Sophia wiped away another tear. And you did. The ballroom remained silent. Every word carried weight. Every face reflected emotion. No one was thinking about the expensive decorations anymore. They were thinking about the quiet father who had spent a lifetime proving that love is measured by sacrifice, not by status. Sam looked around the ballroom, his hands trembling slightly as he held the microphone. I've cleaned these floors for almost 3 decades. A few guests smiled. I've watched hundreds of weddings. I've seen people promise forever. I've watched fathers walk their daughters down this aisle. He paused and looked at Sophia. I never imagined I'd one day stand here beside my own daughter. Sophia reached for his hand. You were beside me every step of the way. Tears filled Sam's eyes. When Sophia was little, she used to ask me why my hands were always rough. Soft laughter rippled through the room. I told her rough hands are just proof that someone has been working hard for the people they love. He looked at his weathered palms. They're older now. But I'd gladly spend another lifetime working if it meant seeing this smile on her face. Not a single guest looked away. Alexander stepped closer. Mr. Brooks. Sam smiled. You can call me Sam. Alexander nodded. Sam, thank you for raising the incredible woman I married today. You taught her kindness. You taught her humility. And you taught her that success means lifting others instead of looking down on them. Sam quietly replied. I only taught her what I hoped she'd never forget. Treat everyone with respect. The person serving your meal today could be carrying a story you'll never know. The event coordinator slowly walked toward the stage. Her eyes were red from crying. Sam, I'm ashamed. This morning I asked you to stay out of sight. I judged you because of your uniform. I'm so sorry. Sam gave her the same gentle smile he had given everyone all morning. Don't carry that guilt. Instead, carry the lesson. She nodded through tears. I will. One by one, hotel employees began standing. The waiters, the chefs, the security guards, the cleaners. Soon the guests joined them. The applause echoed beneath the crystal chandeliers. It wasn't applause for wealth. It wasn't applause for power. It was applause for a life lived with quiet dignity. He sat proudly with the family, exactly where he belonged. The guests would forget the price of the flowers. They would forget the celebrity guests. They would even forget how expensive the wedding had been. But they would never forget the quiet janitor who taught an entire ballroom that love is measured not by what we own, but by what we are willing to sacrifice for the people we cherish. Sometimes the richest person in the room is the one with the biggest heart. Sometimes the most important guest isn't listed on the invitation. And sometimes the person the world overlooks every day is the very person who deserves the loudest applause. As the music faded and the evening drew to a close, every person who left the Grand Ashford Palace Hotel carried the same lesson home. Never judge someone by their uniform, because the quietest soul in the room may be carrying the greatest story of all. Now we'd love to hear from you. If you had been a guest at that wedding, would you have noticed Sam before Sophia called him dad? Or would you have overlooked him like everyone else? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts.